Gideon was one of the great judges of the people of Israel and set them free from the power of the Midianites. But then Gideon died, and he left 70 sons. Can you imagine that? 70 sons to help lead the people of Israel. But then we have a situation where people put blood before right and wrong. We find the story in Judges chapter 9, beginning with verse 1. One day, Gideon's son Abimelech went to Shechem to visit his uncles, his mother's brothers. He said to them and to the rest of his mother's family, ask the lead, notice, not his father Gideon's family, his mother's family. Ask the leading citizens of Shechem whether they want to be ruled by all 70 of Gideon's sons or by one man. And remember, I am your own flesh and blood. So Abimelech's uncles gave this message to all the citizens of Shechem on his behalf. And after listening to his proposal, the people of Shechem decided in favor of Abimelech because he was their relative. Not because it was the right thing to do, but because he was their relative. And notice, Abimelech had no problem exploiting that relationship. Now, why did he not go to his father's relatives and do this? Well, you had to remember, he was a slave woman's son. He was not part of the 70. He was part of a slave. He was the result of a relationship between Gideon and a slave woman. He was not part of the, so to speak, official descendants of Gideon. Now in Judges 9, verse 18, Gideon's last remaining son speaks. He said, you have revolted against my father and his descendants, killing his 70 sons on one stone. And you have chosen his slave woman's son, Abimelech, to be your king, just because he is your relative. Now, brothers and sisters, it's fascinating. They chose a leader based on blood and not the will of God. They chose a leader based on blood and not right and wrong. One of the great challenges that we have in our Philippine culture is that we are very much tied to our friends and very much tied to our family. And like every great strength, it's a double-edged sword. Every great strength of our life also has an extra edge, like every double-edged sword. I teach young couples when they come in for marriage counseling. I ask them, what is the thing that you love the most about that person? And then I ask them, what is the thing that you get the most irritated about? And without fail, it's always the corresponding other side of what they love. The other side of the proverbial coin, the second edge on the proverbial sword. So we have this great strength in our culture of loyalty to family and loyalty to friends. But many times, just like Abimelech exploited that, there are people in our lives that will exploit relationships to do things that are wrong. And because they are our blood, because they are our friend, we go along with them. Because they are our children, please forgive me. Because they are our parents, because they are our brothers and sisters, we put family ahead of right and wrong. And this is one of the things that God had to speak to the Levites about and say, the reason you were chosen is because you put God ahead of blood. The reason the apostles were chosen is they were willing to leave their fathers and mothers and leave their family businesses and go and follow Jesus. They put right ahead of blood. And brothers and sisters, I want to challenge you today. It's wonderful to be loyal to our families. It's wonderful to be loyal to our friends. From time to time, you're going to find somebody like Abimelech who wants to misuse that loyalty. And in those times, you have to learn to stand for right rather than for blood. Now, there's a second thing I want you to see here. The last surviving son of Gideon tells the first parable in the Bible. And I've always loved this parable. And the trees all gather together and they want somebody to be a king, but none of the fruit bearing and none of the great trees want to be the king. So finally, all the trees, verse 14 of Judges 9, turned to the thorn bush and said, come, you be our king. And the thorn bush replied to the trees, if you truly want to make me your king, come and take shelter in my shade. And if not, let fire come out from me and devour the cedars of Lebanon. One of the things I've always found as a truth from this parable, first parable in the Bible, is that there are people in life that are very productive and very fruitful, and they're never trying to push themselves into leadership. You have to work at them. I call them reluctant joiners. I'm one, okay? But I've noticed in my short life, all of the great pastors that I've ever met in my life are like that. They never tried to push themselves into position. They don't relish the spotlight. They don't enjoy the spotlight. They're like these fruitful trees. But the thorn bushes, these are the people who push themselves into leadership and campaign for it and desire it and want it. The one thing you always notice about these people is the domination. Come and bow down before me in my shade. The other thing you always notice about them, if you don't, I'll destroy you. Let fire come out and burn you up. Fruitless self-promoters can never build anything. They are dominating and they are destructive.